Coming up, Eastern Iowa remembers a LaPorte City teen who disappeared 1 year ago. Investigators are looking into a suspicious death in Iowa City. And the president pulls back on his threat to shut down the U.S.-Mexico border.
You're watching KCRG TV 9. Now, from your 24-hour news source, this is KCRG TV 9 News at 10.
You just love them to death.
This weekend will mark 1 year since a LaPorte City teenager disappeared. Investigators found his remains 4 months later. Tonight, his family, friends, classmates, and more are remembering Wilson as being loving, kind, and someone who was working to become more independent. On April 7th of last year, police say Wilson took a walk down to Wolf Creek and never returned. He lived with autism and an intellectual disability. Volunteers searched for days, and local and federal investigators even brought in heavy equipment to help. Then on August 8th, kayakers on Wolf Creek found Wilson's remains. Authorities have yet to announce a cause of death. TV 9's Mary Green talked to Wilson's grandfather today about how the last year has been.
Bruce Wilson says in many ways, Sunday will be like just about every other day. He'll be constantly thinking about his grandson, Jake. Bruce says that he still has some unanswered questions about Jake's disappearance, but he says the past year has also given him some answers and even helped him out in a few ways.
It did. It did make my faith stronger.
Bruce Wilson carries this cross with him every day. It fits right in his hand and reminds him his grandson, Jake, is never too far away.
If you believe in God, then you know where Jake is at. And you know it's good.
That doesn't stop Bruce from missing him. And most of all, his smile.
He was happy all the time. And the one thing I always remember is the way he would say, "Hey, Grandpa," and then he'd ask me a question.
Bruce says he'll also never forget how Jake's community in LaPorte City supported them, looking as hard as they could for one of their own.
Hard as it was because it was cold and snowy and wet, people kept coming out, and it gives you a faith in mankind.
They continue to honor him a year later. On Monday, the entire Union Community School District will wear blue in his memory.
It's so nice to have the support of the small communities. You know, it's been a year since Jake ended up missing, and you know, he's definitely in our thoughts, and the family's still in our prayers.
Jake's grandfather says he still has questions about what happened.
Why did it take so long to find him? I think I know I've come to the conclusion that he drowned.
But he says there's one thing he knows for sure, that he and Jake will eventually be reunited.
I look forward to that day. I actually do. I can see my grandson again.
Around the time that Jake was found, his family had set up a memorial fund to help his younger brother Tyler get to college. Tyler's in the 8th grade right now, and that fund is still going. If you want to donate in order to honor Jake's memory, you can do so at any Veridian Credit Union location. We'll have the details on our website, kcrg.com. Live in the newsroom, Mary Green, KCRG TV 9 News.
Thank you, Mary. Authorities are trying to figure out what led up to a suspicious death in Iowa City. At about 7 o'clock this morning, officers responded to 114 Green Mountain Drive in Iowa City for a report of an unresponsive woman inside that home. By the time officers got there, the woman had died. Police haven't said how the woman died or released her identity. The TV 9 reporter on the scene says police roped off the entire property. Officers were also putting items into an evidence bag, taking pictures in the garage, and using a tow truck. Police, along with Iowa DCI, the Johnson County Attorney's Office, and the Johnson County Medical Examiner's Office, are investigating. Dubuque police are looking for 2 people who they say stole items from Shopco. That incident happened February 17th at about 4:30 in the afternoon. But Dubuque police just posted it to their Facebook page today asking for information. Anyone who knows anything should contact the department. Waterloo police are asking for information on a crash that seriously injured a 20-year-old man. Police say it happened on March 27th at 11 a.m. at the intersection of Broadway Street and Wagner Road. According to a crash report, a 56-year-old driver says he had a green arrow and was turning left. The report says 20-year-old Colton Hopner drove into that driver's path. An air ambulance flew Hopner to UIHC. We don't know his condition. Waterloo police say if anyone witnessed this crash, they should call the police department. And we want to remind you to call us when you see news happening. Call Newsline 9, the number 319-365-9999. But you can also send us news tips, pictures, videos, all that stuff to newsroom@kcrg.com. Now here's Justin Gertz with a look at your First Alert forecast.
Our weather this evening is going to be fairly quiet. That'll be the case for the first part of the weekend, but I would say by Sunday their weather is going to be turning a little more active. Now those temperatures are going to be coming up this weekend. It'll be our warmest weather in nearly 6 months' time as we have highs in the upper 60s to around 70. Some rumbles of thunder are a possibility on Sunday. It's not a washout on Sunday, but there will be some intermittent showers and a few thunderstorms. We are watching the Wednesday-Thursday time frame as all signs point to a potent weather system moving across the Midwest. However, exactly where it tracks will determine the type of weather we get. Could there be some snow in that time frame? Yes, but not necessarily. As we get closer, we'll have a much better idea on how that's going to be evolving, so stay with us over the coming days on that. As far as right now, we still have readings in the upper 40s to mid 50s. Not much of a drop from here on out. I think a lot of us are going to be in the low to mid 40s as we start the day tomorrow. Partly to mostly cloudy skies. Yes, we have milder weather on the way as some of us push close to 70 degrees. In fact, we'll do that a few days in a row. Toward the end of the week, though, there is colder weather in sight. We'll go through all that in your First Alert forecast coming up. Forrest?
Thank you, Justin. Governor Reynolds has declared this Sunday a day for prayer for flood victims and flood recovery. She didn't tie a faith to the day, just saying people should observe it according to their faith. Flooding last month along the Missouri River forced people out of their homes and heavily damaged land, buildings, and roads, among many other things. The Iowa Farm Bureau Federation says the flooding will have a $2 billion impact on the state of Iowa. We're watching the river levels of 10 eastern Iowa rivers. That also includes the Cedar, Mississippi, and English. Just go to kcrg.com/rivers to check it out for yourself. We're about a month and a half away from the Prairie Meadows baseball and softball complex opening up in Marion. Tonight, we're getting our first look at the progress on that project, which is along County Home Road and Highway 13. It's going to eventually have 17 fields, serving traveling teams, with one of those being set aside for people with disabilities called Miracle Field. This week, officials say workers poured concrete on the concourse and they're laying grass in the non-field areas. The opening ceremony for that complex is going to be May 23rd, which will celebrate the completion of the first 8 fields. Phase 2 will include another 8 fields and is set to be completed by 2023. Progress is being made on the Kent Park Lake Restoration Project with hopes of opening that lake back up by August at the latest. The plan is to start refilling in Oxford on Monday. The project included dredging, construction of fish reefs, new beach sand, and new catch basins. The trails and roads to this area are not yet finished. The total project cost is around $3 million. Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke made a stop on the Grinnell campus tonight. This is the 4th town hall he's held this week on a college campus.
But if you came to welcome this stranger from far west Texas, just know that we are grateful.
Tonight, O'Rourke talked about justice reform, immigration, and LGBTQ equality, among other topics. Vermont Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders was back in Iowa tonight. He held a rally at the River Center in Davenport. He talked about health care and how he disagrees that a bill to give felons their voting rights back is not moving forward here in Iowa. He'll be in Muscatine, Fairfield, and Burlington tomorrow. President Trump is backing off of his threat to close the southern border. He's now saying he'll give Mexico a year to stop the flow of migrants and illegal drugs. ABC News has more.
President Trump arriving on the southern border to tour the first portion of replacement fencing.
It looks great. It's better and much more effective than the previous wall.
The president greeted by protesters opposed to his earlier call to shut down the entire border with Mexico. Trump walking back that threat this week, now saying if Mexico doesn't stop the flow of migrants or illegal drugs a year from now, he could shut the border or increase tariffs.
We're going to shut it down if we have to. We're going to tariff the cars coming in that they make in Mexico if we have to.
While U.S. officials say the number of undocumented migrants caught at the border could swell to 1 million by the end of the year, the president is now saying Mexico has ramped up their enforcement efforts.
Mexico's been doing a great job. I want to thank the president of Mexico.
Mexican authorities saying there has been no change in policy. President Trump's about-face on the border shutdown may be tied to pressure he was facing from business groups and fellow Republicans.
Closing down the border would have potentially catastrophic economic impact on our country.
But President Trump says national security should come before trade. He's also threatening to put a 25% tariff on Mexican-made cars coming into the U.S. if the border situation doesn't improve. As Trump arrived in Calexico to tour the section of replacement fencing that is stronger and taller than the one before it, those on the U.S. side say the only thing they want is to talk to the president about the real issues they're facing.
We will not talk about a fake crisis for his base. We will talk about what we need here.
It's been 3 times President Trump has threatened to shut down the southern border, but hasn't followed through. The president is now in Los Angeles for a private fundraiser. Romina Puga, ABC News, Calexico, California.
A man who allegedly posed as a missing teen could be facing 8 years in prison. And the FBI says Brian Rennie has a history of posing as other people, including sex traffic victims. And an Illinois lawmaker is trying to make child care more affordable for parents.